Thank you for that introduction, Dr. Blackwood. So while I don't want to spend the majority of my time re-articulating and reiterating what I'm sure everyone in this room already knows about the very bleak cultural landscape out of which Ralston is paving a new path, I think it would be very remiss of me if I weren't to mention briefly that my life prior to Ralston is in fact a living testament to the lonely and very hopeless reality that many young people are facing today. So I lived through social media addiction, long-term illness from cosmetic surgery that I desperately got in my teen years in an attempt to remedy my insecurities, over-reliance on alcohol and drugs, and disconnected, fragmented, and untrusting relationships, a whole slew of them. And I sought approval and connection essentially in all of the wrong places. And I thought that that external surface economy was the only one available for me to invest in. I wasn't emotionally literate, and I didn't know that I didn't know how to think for myself. I was plugged in, insufferable, misled, empty, and distracted. I knew something was very wrong, but I stumbled around. I declared a bunch of majors. I had that intellectual curiosity, but ultimately I drowned in a river of fleeting mainstream cultural trends. So in undergrad, I was a person who recited increasingly complex ideological mantras and said the political things that I thought peers wanted to hear. My entire existence was fear-based. It was reactive. When I began to get interested in more classical, traditional, conservative ideas, I was met with hostility. I lost my friends, and I was at a complete loss for how to mend those relationships and find compassion in them. I wasn't free. Now, contrast all of that with the culture that Ralston cultivates and what I found at Ralston. All of the fears I had about others' responses to my true thoughts in undergrad evaporated immediately upon arrival in Samos, and Ralston's environment generally, which upholds free speech. I could thoughtfully work out in amorphous, half-baked thought without hostility or without fear of being judged, ostracized, or dismissed. This was an epiphany for me, and to not tiptoe around a field of conversational landmines did wonders for me intellectually. I got curious about things, and my curiosity was mirrored and augmented by the open, hopeful, and earnest faces of my cohort members. So our Greek term bonded my cohort through every possible experience with reality: moonlit swims, climbing up to the cave of Pythagoras, learning a language together, of course, dancing at wine festivals, dozens of shared meals. The list goes on. And once in Savannah, our shared language only grew in depth, complexity, sincerity, and significance as we lived together, dined together, read Dante, Augustine, and Homer together. I now find that it's difficult to begin to articulate the fullness of my experience. It overflows completely. It helps if one of my cohort members, Cameron, Eamon, Olivia, is around to help enrich my memory by invoking Wagner, Hegel, or that time we swam in a frigid river in Arcadia and one of us got pulled down. So what was I looking for, and did I find it? This year, I walked into Dr. Bryson's office hours, as I do. Thank you for your patience with me. And I said, Dr. Bryson, I think what I wanted to really learn how to be good. Why is it so hard to learn how to be good these days? And, that's what the books were in the service of. It's what Dr. Hankins mentioned in his lecture on Thursday night. Augustine believed that the 7 liberal arts were there in the service of actually understanding revelation, not as ends in themselves. So last year, I learned that we ultimately engage with the tradition and traditional culture to reach higher spiritual truths. It's not the Greek itself. It's not the beauty itself. It's not the texts themselves, although those are very important mediators. It's what they allow us to understand about our true selves, how to grow spiritually, and how to properly love each other, how to properly come into relationship with each other and with the world. And interestingly, while I developed an intellectual understanding of the West's foundational culture, I personally began to practice Falun Dafa, a Buddhist-based meditation practice that's currently persecuted in China. I'm grateful to freely practice Dafa in the United States and would often meditate with two of my cohort members in beautiful Forsyth Park near the fountain. Ralston's environment naturally encouraged the appreciation of all spiritual truth, which led me to understand that the East and the West are actually in sync in spiritual aspirations. My intellectual, personal, and spiritual growth happened in concert. My personal cultivation increased my appreciation of the West's cultural inheritance and underscored the necessity of helping young people reconnect to it. So like Mr. Hurwitz said yesterday, the time we were given to rekindle this connection to our culture is a very rare treasure. In my view, all people, regardless of cultural background, are the rightful inheritors of traditional divine culture. We are all made in the image of God. So I emerged from the program with lifelong friends, truly deep connections. I talk daily to the friends I made last year. We listened to hundreds of hours of Greek. We began by reading Homer. We ended with Beckett. I wrote over 50,000 words, not counting my footnotes, and got thoughtful feedback on every single writing assignment. My cohort and I shared countless meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, in Greece, in Savannah, in New York, in pajamas, in black and white tie, in the park. We took our Hegel and Wagner to read in Forsyth. It wasn't just healing or emotionally corrective or fulfilling a therapeutic role. It wasn't just openly exploring embodied, intellectual, spiritual aspects of reality. It wasn't just homemaking and community building. It was all of those, via activating traditional culture's riches, connecting to our past, and finding belonging within the tradition, not as critics, but old friends. By returning to the foundations of culture and reconnecting with the metaphysical bedrock we created our own culture here. I'm no longer searching for something. I'm sated. I'm full. My orientation has changed to that of giving, of synthesizing the lessons I learned, those of friendship, virtue, faith, right relationship, love, destiny, taking these treasures and sharing them with others who, like me, are lost in a dark wood. Thank you.